15. Engineers tried and failed, but his nanny solved it in 30 seconds. What the single dad CEO did next. The meeting room felt like a pressure cooker. A large screen glowed at the front, flashing red. Engineers stood scattered around the long table, papers in hand, tablets open, tension in their shoulders. Matt Bennett, CEO and founder of Bennett Autotech, stood at the head of the room like a man holding back a storm. His voice was quiet, but no one missed the edge in it. "Explain it again. Like I'm not the one signing your paychecks." A younger engineer cleared his throat, eyes darting toward his colleagues. "We've checked every system, rebooted, rewired. We've tested it in different conditions. Still, the car keeps drifting off route. We don't know why." "You don't know," Matt repeated, folding his arms. His jaw tightened. Another engineer jumped in. "We think there's some kind of signal confusion. Maybe interference from overlapping data sources. It's rare, hard to predict, but it's there." Matt ran a hand down his face. "So, let me get this straight. 15 of the brightest people in the building have been at this for 3 weeks, and the best you can give me is maybe, and we think?" No one answered. He turned toward the massive windows, watching gray clouds gather above the city. The weather matched the mood. His company's biggest launch to date was now at risk. Investors were circling like vultures, and the media wouldn't be far behind. His phone buzzed in his pocket. "Nanny's here." Matt sighed, checked the message, and without another word to his team, stepped out of the room. Outside, the tone shifted. Softer lights, less urgency, but the tension clung to him like static. Standing in the lobby was Kelly, blonde hair in a simple braid, coat damp from the drizzle outside. She held the hand of a little girl wearing a raincoat and boots that squeaked softly with each tiny step. "Just here to grab the house key," Kelly said with a small smile. "We'll be out of your way in a second." Matt handed over the key without hesitation. "Thanks." He looked at his daughter, Ava, 5 years old and beaming. "Daddy," she said, tugging at his arm. "Can I see the car? The new one? Please? Just for a minute?" Matt hesitated. His mind was still back in the boardroom. But then she tilted her head, gave him that look, the one that always reminded him of her mother, and his shoulders softened. "5 minutes," he said. "Then you're heading home." Ava grinned and grabbed Kelly's hand. The three of them walked down the corridor together, past glass offices and curious glances, toward the restricted R&D floor. Engineers passed them, nodding stiffly. No one paid attention to Kelly. She was just the nanny. No one noticed. Not yet, but in just a few hours, she would become the name no one could stop talking about. The R&D floor was quiet, but not calm. The tension from the earlier meeting still hung in the air, as if every unspoken worry lingered between the quiet tapping of keyboards and the hum of overhead lights. Engineers sat at their desks, glancing toward the large screen that still displayed confusing data, reminders of the problem no one had solved yet. Matt walked in with Kelly and Ava, looking as if his mind was still stuck in the meeting, too drained to explain anything. Ava, full of energy, ran straight to the sleek model car in the center of the room, her little shoes tapping against the polished floor. "Is this the one that drives all by itself?" she asked, wide-eyed. "Mostly," Matt replied, crouching beside her. "It's supposed to, but sometimes it gets confused." "Like me at bedtime," Ava said with great seriousness. Kelly laughed softly. Even Matt smiled. He stood and pointed toward a large wall display, where a digital map showed the car's last test run. Colored lines traced its path, showing every turn, stop, and misstep. Kelly didn't say anything at first. She stayed a few steps behind, watching the screen with a quiet focus. Her eyes moved slowly across the diagram, taking in the patterns. Where most people would see lines and numbers, she seemed to see something more. And then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, she said, "Have you checked if the car is getting confused by signals from too many directions?" Matt turned toward her. "What do you mean?" Kelly shifted a little, clearly unsure if she should explain. "Well, in cities with tall buildings, there can be signal towers very close to each other. Sometimes that makes the car get information from more than one place at once. It might not know which one to trust. The room froze. A few engineers nearby looked up. One of them slowly walked over to the screen, staring at the area Kelly had pointed to. "Wait, that could be it," he murmured. Matt stepped forward. "Pull it up." Within moments, the head engineer began checking the data. Everyone gathered around as new visuals popped onto the screen. Sections of the car's route, moments when it had hesitated or turned too late. And in each of those moments, they saw the same thing. The car was reacting to two different signals coming in almost at the same time. They hadn't seen it before, but now it was obvious. The vehicle wasn't broken, it was just confused, getting directions from two sources at once, and no one had told it how to choose between them. Kelly had seen it. Not after hours of analysis, not with a team. In less than a minute. "She's right," the lead engineer said quietly. "That's the root of the whole problem." The silence that followed was different this time, not tense but stunned. All eyes turned to Kelly, not with doubt but with respect, and something close to awe. Matt looked at her, something shifting behind his eyes. "How did you know that?" Kelly hesitated. "I used to work in systems, for machines that navigate things. It was a while ago." It wasn't much of an explanation, but it wasn't nothing. Then Ava, ever honest, ever proud, spoke up with a grin. "Told you she was super smart." Matt kept looking at Kelly. He had always known she was calm, thoughtful, great with Ava. But this wasn't luck or a lucky guess. This was understanding. Deep, practiced, lived experience. And for a rare moment, Matt Bennett, the man known for always being 10 steps ahead, was truly caught off guard. Kelly looked down, uncomfortable under the weight of attention. "I wasn't trying to interrupt, I just saw something I couldn't unsee." "You didn't interrupt," Matt said slowly. "You solved it." Behind him, the engineers were already updating the systems, testing what Kelly had suggested, their excitement bubbling over into quick chatter and hopeful eyes. Kelly, meanwhile, knelt next to Ava again, brushing a strand of hair from the little girl's forehead, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just saved weeks of work and possibly millions of dollars with a single, quiet observation. Matt stood a few feet away, still watching her. No resume, no title, no credentials on paper, and yet she saw what none of them had. He didn't know what else she had kept hidden. But he was sure of one thing now. This woman, this quiet, thoughtful Nanny, was the most important person in the room. Matt sat at his desk, the city skyline stretching beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but his eyes weren't on the view. A file lay open in front of him. Not a business proposal, not a quarterly report, but something far more curious. Kelly Morgan, 25, graduated from MIT with honors, dual degree in aerospace engineering and computer science. 3 years at a leading aeronautics firm until she vanished from the industry 2 years ago. No scandal, no headlines. Just gone. Now she was a nanny, living in a modest apartment, no public presence, no LinkedIn, no resume floating around in hiring pools. Matt leaned back in his chair. It didn't make sense, but it made him want to know more. That evening, he asked Kelly to stay a little longer, after Ava was asleep, after the lights dimmed and the house quieted. She agreed without question, and they sat at the kitchen table with mugs of tea between them. "I looked into your background," he said honestly. Kelly didn't flinch. She only nodded. "I figured you would. I don't usually investigate my daughter's nannies." "I'm not a usual nanny," she said gently, without a trace of arrogance. Matt tilted his head. "Why'd you leave aerospace?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then, with a soft exhale, she began, "My mom passed away suddenly, stroke. I was 23. It was just the two of us and my younger brother Leo. He was 12 at the time. A few months later, he was in an accident. Bike hit by a car. Spinal damage. He spent months in rehab. Couldn't walk for almost a year. I had to be there." She took a sip of her tea, voice calm but never cold. My job didn't allow the flexibility I needed. They offered part-time, but the guilt trip started. The pressure, the expectation that I'd get over it and go back to normal. She looked up at Matt. But Leo wasn't normal. He needed me, and I didn't want to be the person who chose algorithms over him. Matt didn't speak. Kelly shrugged, not bitterly, just matter of fact. I left. I found work that let me keep him close. Quiet work, consistent, something stable. Nannying seemed small, but it gave me time, gave us peace, and I liked being around kids again. There was no drama in the way she told it, no apology, no anger, just the quiet, unwavering truth of someone who had made a decision and stood by it. Matt looked at her, really looked. She was so different from the women he usually met in business circles, polished, ambitious, always presenting the best version of themselves. But Kelly didn't need to impress anyone, and somehow that made her unforgettable. "You could have come back," he said. "With your background, your mind, companies would line up." She smiled faintly. "Maybe someday, but right now Leo still needs me, and honestly, so do some of these kids." Matt stared down into his cup. He'd built his company by chasing answers, demanding results, controlling everything he could, but here was someone who had walked away from recognition, from power, from prestige, not because she failed, but because she valued something more: family, peace, purpose, and she didn't expect anyone to understand. Which only made Matt want to understand her more. He glanced up, his voice lower now. "You didn't even blink in that lab today. You knew exactly what you were looking at." She gave a soft shrug. "Some things never leave you." He nodded, watching the way her eyes softened when she spoke about her brother, the way her fingers curled slightly around her mug like she was steadying herself, quiet, steady strength in every line of her face. For a man used to boardrooms, data, and control, it was disarming. Matt didn't say it aloud, not yet, but he was thinking it. I've never met anyone who chose the right thing without needing to be praised for it. And in that realization, something shifted in him. Not attraction, not admiration, respect. The kind that starts at the soul and grows without needing permission. Matt wasn't the type to ask twice, but with Kelly, he found himself wanting to. The day after her unexpected discovery saved the project, he called her into his office. No formalities, no small talk, just straight to the point. "You saw what no one else could. I want you consulting, part-time, flexible hours. Come in when you can." Kelly hesitated, shifting in the chair across from him. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking to go back. Not yet." Matt frowned. "Why not?" She gave a half smile. "Because my life isn't just mine right now. I still have Leo and Ava, and sometimes quiet is more valuable than achievement." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. That night, as Matt tucked Ava into bed, she handed him a crayon drawing, a lopsided sketch of their prototype car with stick figures beside it. One of them was labeled Daddy, the other Me, and next to the car stood a smiling woman in a ponytail, under bold letters scrawled by a 5-year-old, "This is Kelly. She made the car smart again." Matt chuckled. "So you did, huh?" Ava nodded proudly. "You should let her fix more stuff." The next morning, Kelly returned to Matt's office. She had the picture in her hand, folded neatly. "Ava made a strong case," she said. 3 days a week, no titles, no press." Matt nodded once. Deal. And just like that, Kelly Morgan, former aerospace engineer, current nanny, became the quiet force behind a project that had nearly fallen apart. She didn't take over. She didn't grandstand. Instead, she joined the team humbly, sitting beside young engineers and guiding them through complex issues with surprising ease and grace. She had a way of explaining things without making anyone feel stupid. Her voice was calm, her logic crisp, her instincts almost surgical. "You think in systems," Matt said once, after watching her talk an entire team through a connectivity issue in under 10 minutes. "I think in people," Kelly replied. "Machines just happen to listen faster." Outside of work hours, something else began to shift, something Matt hadn't expected. At first, it was just convenience. Kelly was around more, so dinners happened together. She'd help prep meals when he stayed late at the office. Matt would read Ava stories while Kelly cleared dishes. But soon those shared routines began to feel comfortable. One evening, Ava asked Kelly to help with her tablet. She wanted to build her own robot friend. Kelly introduced her to basic coding games using Scratch, turning lessons into scavenger hunts. "Make the cat chase the butterfly," Kelly whispered conspiratorially, "but only if the butterfly's wearing a red hat." Ava squealed with laughter. Matt watched from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, unable to hide his grin. Later that night, Ava showed off her new project, a crude but functioning animation of a blocky robot that danced when clicked. "I named him Uncle Cody," she said proudly. Matt burst out laughing. "Why Uncle?" "Because he fixes things and gives good hugs," she said matter-of-factly. "Just like you and Kelly." It was the first time in months Matt had laughed that freely, not at a joke, not for show, just because. And in that moment he caught Kelly looking at him, her smile soft, something gentle in her eyes. They didn't say anything, they didn't need to. They were building something, not just a car or a company revival, but something far more unexpected. A rhythm, a warmth, a kind of quiet belonging. And though Matt didn't know where it was going yet, for the first time in years he wasn't afraid to find out. It was the kind of afternoon no one planned, but somehow felt perfect. Ava had begged for a park day. "With both of you," she said, clutching Kelly's hand and looking up at Matt with wide, hopeful eyes. Matt almost said no. He had emails to answer, a pitch deck to finish. But then he looked at her, at both of them. And for once he said yes. The sky was clear, tinged with the gold of late autumn light. At the park, they flew Ava's favorite rainbow kite, took turns pushing her on the swings, and lay on the grass pointing at clouds that looked like sea creatures. As dusk fell, Kelly suggested a game she used to play with her brother. "Let's guess the stars," she said, lying beside Ava on the soft grass. "Not their real names, the names we imagine for them." "That one looks like a squirrel," Ava giggled. "That's Captain Gigglebeard," Kelly replied without hesitation, making Ava laugh louder. Matt lay quietly nearby, watching them. He didn't join the game, not out of disinterest, but because he didn't want to break the moment. The two of them, heads close, laughing in whispers under a sky turning violet, it felt like something sacred. Later, the wind grew cooler. They packed up slowly, with Ava dozing off before they even made it to the car. Matt drove, the city glowing faintly in the distance. In the back seat, Ava slept in Kelly's arms, her head nestled beneath Kelly's chin, and Kelly, lulled by the quiet hum of the car and the weight of the child against her, had drifted off too, her head tilted gently against the window, one hand still resting protectively across Ava's back. Matt glanced in the rearview mirror. He hadn't expected to see that. Two people, one little, one grown, leaning into each other in the purest kind of trust. No performance, no posing, just connection. He pulled the car to the side of the road, quietly, carefully. Reaching for the coat beside him, he stepped out into the soft chill of the night. Then he opened the rear door, just enough. Without a word, he draped his coat over Kelly's shoulders. She didn't stir. But her breathing deepened, and her grip on Ava instinctively tightened, like a mother's. Matt paused, one hand still on the fabric, and he thought, if this was family, it would look like this, not the kind of family in picture frames, not the kind in holiday cards or office chatter, but this, soft, simple, unspoken. A child safe in the arms of someone who cared. A woman who had given up so much and still offered more, and him standing there, not as a CEO or a boss, but simply a man who didn't want this moment to end. He got back in the car, started the engine again, and drove the rest of the way home in silence. but inside him something had shifted. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply, and without needing to say a word. The story broke on a Tuesday morning. No one knew exactly who had leaked it. Maybe it was someone from the engineering team, maybe someone who overheard too much in the cafeteria. But the moment it hit the internet, it spread like fire and dry wind. By noon, her name was everywhere, from Nanny to tech savior, the hidden genius behind the billion-dollar car. CEO's quiet hero solves what 15 engineers couldn't. Pictures surfaced, blurry snapshots from company events, a few older ones scraped from long-forgotten social media accounts. They showed her smiling shyly beside Ava, walking through the lobby with a coffee in one hand and a file in the other. Not posed, not polished, just real. Within hours, reporters had staked out the building. Cameras were aimed at every exit. Producers called the front desk, begging for statements. Online forums speculated about her past. Some called her a prodigy. Others questioned if the story was exaggerated. A few even said she must have had help. Kelly was horrified. She sat in Matt's office, arms folded tightly across her chest, eyes locked on the floor. Her phone buzzed nonstop, old classmates, confused relatives, even strangers. "This isn't what I wanted," she said, her voice strained. "I didn't ask for attention, I just fixed something I recognized, that's all." Matt stood quietly near the window, watching her, not saying anything for a moment. He could see how deeply the spotlight unsettled her. The woman who had quietly chosen responsibility over recognition now stood at the center of a storm she never wanted. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said gently, "and I'm not going to let this turn into something that makes you feel like you did." That afternoon, he called for an all-hands meeting. No press, no public statement, no spin, just the people who worked in the building, who had walked past Kelly without knowing who she was, now sitting in rows with curious eyes and murmured conversations. Kelly stood off to the side, not quite behind the curtain, but not fully part of the crowd either. She wasn't sure what Matt planned to say. She only knew he had asked her to trust him. Matt stepped up to the podium, not with notes or slides, but with something far more disarming: honesty. "By now, most of you have seen the headlines," he began. His voice was clear, even, but there was a calm gravity to it. "But headlines only tell the part that gets clicks. What many of you don't know is the truth." He paused, letting the room settle. 2 months ago, we were stuck, completely stuck. The brightest people we had couldn't solve a core issue in our system. We were days away from pulling the plug. And then, someone who wasn't even supposed to be in the room, saw what we missed. He turned slightly, gesturing toward the side of the stage. Kelly didn't move, but she felt every eye turn to her. "Her name is Kelly Morgan, and she's not just Ava's nanny. She's the reason this company still exists." A hush spread through the room. Matt continued, his tone quieter now, more personal. "She once had a career in engineering, but life handed her something more important: her family. She stepped away, not because she lacked skill or ambition, but because she had the courage to choose what mattered most. And even now, when all she wanted was peace and privacy, she gave us her insight without hesitation, without ego." Kelly lifted her gaze. Their eyes met. "And today," Matt said, turning back to the crowd, "we're not just thanking her, we're making sure that stories like hers don't disappear." He stepped back, lifted a small card from the podium. "Starting this quarter, Bennett Autotech will launch the Leo Scholarship Fund, named for Kelly's younger brother. It will support students in science and engineering who've had to pause their education due to personal hardship or caregiving. Because we know now, the brightest minds don't always come in perfect packages, and they don't always wear badges." A ripple of applause began, tentative, then stronger. Then someone stood, and another, and soon the whole room was on its feet. Matt waited, then smiled softly. "And finally, it's my honor to officially welcome our new systems advisor, Kelly Morgan." The applause swelled, not with hype, but with something truer: recognition, respect. For the first time in years, Kelly didn't feel invisible. She wasn't a background figure, wasn't a whispered rumor or a helper behind the curtain. She was seen, fully, publicly, truthfully. And in that moment, hands clapping, faces smiling, her name echoing in a room that had never said it out loud, Kelly understood. This wasn't about being famous. It was about being, finally, undeniably valued. The hospital room was dim, softened by the yellow glow of a bedside lamp and the gentle rhythm of machines humming in the background. Leo lay asleep, his chest rising and falling with the kind of calm only exhaustion brings, a thin blanket drawn up to his chin and a dog-eared paperback slipping slowly from his hand. Kelly sat quietly beside him, her posture upright but her shoulders heavy, as though she had trained herself to carry both stillness and worry in equal measure. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers loosely laced, eyes fixed not on anything in particular, but on the kind of thoughts that don't speak out loud. Matt entered without a word, holding a paper cup that smelled faintly of chamomile. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He placed the cup beside her, took the empty chair next to hers, and let the silence settle like a soft coat around them both. They had done this before, many times, in many variations. Sometimes she would speak, sometimes she wouldn't. Sometimes he would ask questions. Most of the time, he didn't. There was something about being still together that neither of them wanted to break. It was the same kind of quiet that followed them home, on nights when Ava woke with fever and fear, and both of them sat by her side until her breathing evened out. Kelly would hum softly, running a damp cloth over her daughter's forehead, while Matt adjusted the pillows, his touch careful, almost tender. And when Ava finally slipped into sleep, Kelly would rest against the headboard, eyes closed from weariness, and drift off without realizing. Matt never moved her. He only covered her gently with a blanket, and if a strand of hair fell across her cheek, he'd reach out and brush it away, not hurriedly, not for show, but with the kind of care that builds slowly in a man who doesn't yet know he's falling. They never spoke about love. They didn't need to. It was there, in the cup of tea Matt left on her desk in the morning, in the extra scarf Kelly looped around his neck when he forgot his own, in the way she lingered in the doorway a few seconds longer than necessary, and in the way he looked up every time she entered a room, like the air shifted slightly just by her presence. What they shared was not dramatic or rushed, but rather something that breathed quietly between them, forming in the spaces between conversation and concern. One night, after Leo suffered a minor setback and had to be readmitted for a few days, Kelly sat at the far corner of the hospital room, her face pale with worry, and her hands gripping the edges of the chair. It wasn't a crisis, not this time, but she had known too many uncertain nights to pretend her heart wasn't quietly bracing for something worse. Matt arrived less than an hour later, not because she had called, but simply because he knew. He walked in without hesitation, not carrying tea or flowers or some clever distraction, but simply himself, steady, present, and there. Without speaking, he knelt in front of her chair and gently reached for her hands. His were warm, grounding hers, and for a moment Kelly simply looked down at the way their fingers fit together, as if the shape had always been meant to align. His voice, when it came, was soft and low, like the final line of a song that had taken too long to write. "I didn't just find a solution to a project," he said, eyes locked on hers. "I found someone I never knew I needed." She didn't answer right away. There was nothing performative in the way she looked at him, only a quiet awe, like she was seeing him fully for the first time and realizing he had been choosing her long before either of them noticed. Instead of replying with words, she leaned forward slowly, pressed her forehead gently to his, and closed her eyes. And in that small, sacred space between them, where no promises were made, but everything was understood, something old and aching inside both of them finally began to heal. 6 months had passed, though time no longer felt like something to count, but something to live through, one steady, graceful day at a time. In the heart of the company, the navigation project not only recovered, it soared. Under Kelly's guidance as Chief Systems Strategy Advisor, the team moved in rhythm, not just following data, but learning to listen differently, to look wider, think deeper. Her name appeared on internal memos, whiteboard diagrams, and now, quietly, on the patents being filed. Yet to anyone watching her from the outside, Kelly hadn't changed much. She still walked the halls in simple clothes, still tied her hair the same way, still knelt when Ava came running to show her a drawing or a wobbly-toothed grin. And Leo, her reason for everything, was walking again, slower than most, steadier than before. Thanks to the full support of the Leo Fund, he now attended physical therapy with the best specialists in the state. But more than that, he smiled again. Not the polite, cautious smile of someone who had lived too long in pain, but a real, deep 12-year-old grin that showed up when he played catch with Ava, or when Matt let him explore the lab's simulator floor like a mini-engineer. One morning, Kelly arrived at Matt's office with a small envelope, no email, no formal note, just a folded piece of paper with crayon handwriting and tiny finger smudges of orange juice. It was Ava's kindergarten essay. At the top of the page, in wobbly letters, was the title, My Family, and beneath it, in bright purple, My family is my daddy and Kelly and Leo and me. We pancakes. We fix cars. We take care of each other. We love all the time. Matt read it twice, then a third time, and when he looked up, Kelly was already smiling. That evening, when the house was quiet, and Ava had fallen asleep with her arms tangled around a stuffed giraffe, and Leo was in the living room drawing circuit maps on a tablet, Matt found Kelly in the kitchen, rinsing out mugs from tea they'd already finished. He didn't speak right away. He simply dried one cup and placed it gently on the rack beside her. Then he leaned against the counter, and looked at her. Really looked. Not like a CEO, not like a man trying to say something impressive. Just a man, tired of waiting to speak what his heart had already chosen. "I've been thinking," he said softly. She glanced over her shoulder, amused. "That sounds serious." He reached into his pocket, pulled out something small and quiet. Not a box, not a showpiece, but a simple silver band, warm from being held. "Let's not just raise a child together," he said, voice steady, eyes unwavering. "Let's build a life." Kelly didn't cry, not the way people do in movies, but her breath caught, and her hand, still damp from dishwater, slowly reached for his. She didn't need to ask if he meant it. She had felt it long before tonight. And when she nodded, their hands closed around that promise, not with fireworks, not with a spotlight, but with something far more enduring. That weekend, the four of them sat together on a blanket in the park. No cameras, no suits, no expectations. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in soft amber and pinks. Ava leaned against Kelly's side, drowsy from too much laughter. Leo lay sprawled beside her, tossing blades of grass in the air like miniature rockets. Matt sat just behind them, one arm around Kelly's back, the other resting on the ground like a quiet anchor. They weren't extraordinary from a distance, just four people sharing a patch of earth, breathing the same air. But in the closeness of that moment, in the calm between their words, there was something unmistakable. A family. Not one shaped by blood alone, but by choice, by grace, by hearts that had found their way home. And so a story that began with a broken machine and a quiet voice ends not with fanfare, but with something far more powerful, a gentle kind of love, the kind built not in grand gestures, but in small, faithful moments. Because sometimes, family isn't something you're born into. Sometimes, it's something you choose, something you build, one heartbeat at a time. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We bring you real, emotional, life-changing stories. Stories that heal, that remind us what truly matters. Until next time, keep believing in love, in grace, and in second chances.